Hey everybody, my name is Michael Rymer. I am the co-producer and director of the motion picture Face to Face. The subject of this film is actually based on the work of one of my old high school friends. And I happened to be having lunch with him one day in Sydney, and I said, well, what are you up to? And he said, look, I can't even describe to you what I'm doing, but David Williamson's written a play about it. I'll email it to you. So that day he emailed me the play, and I read it, and I loved it. And really the experience of reading the play is pretty similar to the experience of watching the movie. You know, I came into this play going, well, I don't really care about any of these people. I don't really like any of them. What's this going to be like? And then 10 pages in, I was sort of hooked. 30 pages in, I couldn't put it down. And by the end of it, I cared deeply about what happened to this kid and every other character. And I thought, wow, this is like an Australian 12 Angry Men. What a fantastic piece of drama, and what a great low-budget film this would make, because you don't need a lot of money to shoot it. You just need good actors. And so I called Dave and I said, I love this. I want to do it as a movie, but surely surely it doesn't work out this well all the time. And he said, actually, the system is pretty amazing. It does work out. And I said, well, I think you've just solved half the world's problems. So I'm a bit of I'm very proud of the film, but I'm also a bit of an evangelist for the subject matter. And I'm very excited about the fact that this film is being used by practitioners of restorative justice to deal with kids who are first-time offenders, youth offenders, non-violent crimes, to try to keep kids from becoming institutionalized criminals.
My name is John McDonald. I'm the managing director of a business called Proactive Resolutions. Restorative justice, it seems to mean many things to many people. For us at Proactive Resolutions, it's about responding to an incident, a crime, an incident in the workplace, bullying, harassment, violence, something like that, and getting the people who own that incident to figure out how to deal with it. So when we talk about restorative justice, we talk about a community of people affected by something that's happened that's caused harm, and giving that community of people defined by the incident the opportunity to deal with it themselves.
The process of restorative justice is derived from indigenous cultures. The people who came up with the system studied Maori traditions and, a lot of island traditions, and, a lot of indigenous peoples around the world tend to have the system where if there's a conflict, the entire, tribe will gather, the chief or the elder will sort of sit at the head of the circle, and everybody in the community will speak about how this conflict, these events, these actions have affected them. And what they discovered was that if people have to sit face to face and deal with the consequences of their actions, both positive and negative, if they get to experience a sense of shame at the pain and difficulty that they've caused others, or pride in the positive choices that they've made, it tends to naturally cause people to resolve these conflicts and sort of unify as a tribe, as a community, as a village. I've made a lot of dark films in my life, hopefully dark but life-enriching, positive, films that make you want to live life more, but quite intense and dealing with the sort of the more, tragic, darker sort of aspects of life. So it's just nice to do a film that has such a positive message and a positive outcome, and not just to make you feel better when you walk out of the film, but it's actually suggesting real practical solutions that can actually be applied in the world immediately. I read the play, I studied the subject matter, I've shot the movie, but it wasn't until I was in the editing room and I'd seen it 100 times that I really began to understand what the facilitator is doing from moment to moment. That certain things have to happen in a certain order for progress to be made amongst the group. And it's quite specific and technical. And so it's not just this sort of free-for-all where everybody just expresses how they feel. This is actually, they're being guided very carefully to get to the truth of various situations and for them to all understand their role in it and how they affect each other. But it all unfolds in a fairly specific way, which, you know, the more you study the film, the more interesting it becomes, I think.
Look, the first thing I say about the film is I was astonished at David Williamson being able to write plays, having watched us do these conferences, and then to see, I didn't know Michael Rymer, but I'd seen his films and I'd seen some of his work, and the way he's managed to take what can be a 7 or 8 hour event and encapsulate it into that short space of time and not miss anything was astonishing to me.
David is Australia's most prominent, famous playwright, probably in the history of Australian drama. There is no one as prolific and as successful and as accomplished as David Williamson. When I first approached David about the option, he said, look, you know, you don't have to pay me any money, but I want, you know, I want to be a co-producer, and I want, you know, and I said, David, you know, you created this, it's your material, you can have whatever you want. And so then our lawyers started negotiating. And, you know, there was something about lawyers. In 2 weeks, the negotiation had degenerated into this terribly acrimonious thing. And David was so upset, he just sort of cancelled the whole deal. And I walked away going, how did this happen? We're trying to make a film about conflict resolution. How did this dissolve into this mess so easily? So I let some time pass, and then I actually happened to be in Queensland 6 months later, and I had a couple of days free. So I drove up to where David Williamson lives, which is on the coast. He happened to be running a festival, like an arts festival that weekend. And so my wife and I went, and we had dinner with David and his wife, and, you know, we sort of basically had a rapprochement and began to sort of communicate. And then we just basically wrote a letter of agreement between us and left the lawyers out of it. You know, we shot this chronologically, and we were sort of trying to figure out how to do it as we went. I was working with a crew who'd actually, you know, never made a film. The producers had never produced a film. The operators had never operated. The DP had done one feature, but, you know, very little. We had no gear. We had no, you know, focus pullers. You know, the camera was attached to the monitors with, you know, cables that you buy at Radio Shack. It was very, you know, let's rent a barn and put on a show. That mentality was very true to what we did. The film was shot in 12 days. And the only way that was possible is because it was, you know, 85% of the film actually takes place in one room. So of that 12 days, 8 or 9 of them were actually just in that room. So actually, logistically, it wasn't that challenging at all. The biggest logistical challenge was that the actors actually had to memorize like 12 to 15 pages of dialogue a day. And so I heard a lot of grumbling about that. In fact, we'd do a day's work, and then at the end of each day, I say, okay, so tomorrow we got to page 45. What say we all try and get to 60 tomorrow? And I go, what, 60? Are you crazy? And like, okay. So, you know, there'd be a negotiation, and we'd find a natural point to stop, and it would work out fine. My great passion as a filmmaker is acting. I love great acting, and there's nothing that gets me more excited than something amazing happening in front of the camera, particularly something I didn't expect. That's always great. We actually had most of the cast in place, but we hadn't found the young actor to play the main role of Wayne, the kid who's actually, you know, being threatened with being sent to jail. The role of Wayne was very challenging. He had to be physically intimidating and sort of, you know, at first glance look like a thug, but he had to be soft. And vulnerable inside, and someone that you ended up caring about. And those are two very contradictory states, and to find that in one package was quite a challenge. And on top of that, this actor was required to go through all sorts of emotional sort of ups and downs in the course of the play. So I just needed, just a first-rate, brilliant young actor who didn't look like an actor. And I said to everyone involved, I said, look, we've got our money, we've got a schedule, we've got a location, we've got most of the cast. If we can't find the actor to play Wayne, we really ought not make this film. Luckily, we found the perfect actor to play Luke. Greg Apps sent me a copy of a film, wonderful Australian film called Black Balloon, with Tony Collette, and had this young actor who was playing a severely autistic kid. And Luke was just amazing, an amazing performance. And so I contacted Luke, and luckily, after Black Balloon, Luke had gone to America, got a big agent, done some big movies, including The Mummy 3 or something, and had a horrible time. So Luke was ready to come home and do something very small, very intimate, and and he really just hit it out of the park with this one. He brought so much humor and intensity and sort of edge, and created a sort of atmosphere. Just you never quite knew exactly what he was going to do, which I always love. And he kept a lot of the other actors on their toes, because they were all expecting him to do the same thing from take to take, which I never understand. Why, if you're going to do 5 takes, why does an actor do the same thing 5 times the same way? It makes no sense to me at all. And Luke was just pathological about he would always be reaching, trying other things. So he was great fun to work with. This film plays particularly well in front of a live audience. Strangely, it's a small, intimate film. It should work great on TV, and it does. But there's something about the collective experience of, because it's about a collective, there's a synergy that happens, and there's something special that comes out of screening. So I'm very excited that this new company, Mousetrap, has sort of emerged as to experiment and try and find new ways to bring you these films.
Now from Face to Face, she plays Claire in the movie, Claire Baldoni. Please welcome award-winning icon of Australian cinema, Sigrid Thornton, everybody. What type of research did you do to personally prepare for this?
It's a very good question, because one of the, historically, of course, like most actors, I try to research, I should say, meticulously for any feature-length film, any material really, any script. But in this case, Michael, who is actually Michael Rymer, our superb director, I think he's done an extraordinary job here, as has our editor, Sasha. I have to just give him, and Richard. I mean, it was very much a team effort, but really, Michael got this film up in 2 weeks. He'd been working on it in pre, if you like, for a good long while, and suddenly decided not to go government funding, which is the main source of funding in Australia is government, in fact, for film development and indeed production. But Michael decided to go a different way and privately finance the film, and he rang me and said, well, are you interested in this script? I said, yeah, it looks great, and I knew the play. I'd seen the play on the stage. And he said, I said, when are you shooting? He said, in 2 weeks. So the idea of actually meticulous research had to be thrown right out the window, and in favour of kind of naturalism, really, and what you see on the screen is very much an organic process. So the luxury that we had, the only luxury we had as actors, because we absolutely had no rehearsal at all. We had one table read, but no rehearsal even on the set. We just rolled the cameras. Which was mortifying, as you can imagine. Any actor will sort of be shaking their boots at the very thought of that. But what we did have was the luxury of consecutive filming. So the kind of unfolding that you see take place in the film happened in a rather more genuine and organic way than it would normally happen on a film shoot when you're shooting out of sequence.
In sequence.
That's right. Yeah. So we would arrive, in the morning, and we might have got to page 35 in the morning, and we'd shoot for, page 55 or more. In fact, Michael used to send us off in the evening saying, we might go for, 40 pages tomorrow, and we'd sort of freak out completely, but we often made the grade.
What's the difference in funding, private funding? Why did he go that way?
Oh, well, because he wanted to make he was hot to trot, basically, and he wanted to make the film quickly. But there are huge advantages to our film funding system. Works extremely well for all sorts of pictures, but it's a slow process. The wheels turn very, very slowly, and there's a lot of red tape, as you can well imagine. So, so Michael decided to skip that and go private. And indeed, it was we like to call the film the little engine that could. It was made on a shoestring, and no one got paid. But Michael took the trouble and the care to employ very good practitioners, some of whom were new chums to feature film. Like Dennis Illick, our cinematographer, was actually new to feature filming, but nevertheless had extensive experience as a stills photographer. We shot it on SLR cameras. We cut corners wherever it was possible.
Wow.
We shot it in about 10 or 12 days.
Now you said it was not a very long period of time, but what was the collaboration like between everybody on the set? Was there any off-screen exercises?
Drama? Oh, I see. Yeah. Exercises, you mean? Well, not really. I mean, it sounds kind of surprising, and it's a very fair question. But to be honest with you, shut in that hot box for 10 days straight with that group of people was kind of enough. And it bonded us very, very quickly. And it gave us the experience that those characters would in fact have had. And of course we'd all done, I mean, I'm not suggesting that we hadn't all done as much homework as was physically possible in the time, but there wasn't much time.
Right. Improvisation on the set. It seemed like some of the lines is overlapping, and was improvisation allowed?
Not as such. There was
a playwright that wrote it, right?
That's right. The play was written by a man called David Williamson, who is really our preeminent Australian playwright. He's certainly the most well-known playwright in the country and the most popular, even to this day. And he's a prolific playwright. He's written he's probably written over 50 plays in his lifetime, David. And it was a tight little script adapted by Michael with David's approval every step of the way. But it was tight as a drama, and we really didn't need to digress very much, with the exception of expletives here and there, as you'll notice, which is very Australian, and I think and the ums and ahs and and things like that, which of course helped people feel more naturalistic, because Michael was quite definitively. It was very important for Michael for us to go for a documentary style, if you like, and we were all neck mic'd. We had a boom as well, but we all had neck mics, which gave us a lot of freedom in terms of overlaps.
Right. That's great. A little bit off the track, but you've done TV, film, and theater, and I'm sure you get this question a lot, but what's your favorite thing?
I just like good scripts. I don't have a favourite medium. I think they're all, people say they're all the same, and there are similarities between them all, but they're all really very different in some ways too. I like the fact that the story is told in very large pictures on the big screen, and so that the camera even can lie even less in a feature film. But the luxury with television is that you have a much longer period of time in which to tell the story and to tell the story of the character. On the stage, they call it the actor's medium, and the actors have the incredible luxury of at least a month's, traditionally at least a month's rehearsal to work with the material. And my great love, I mean, in some ways I'd probably rather like to be paid a wage just to sit in a rehearsal room and play with the material. My interest is first and foremost in the script.
Yeah, and the work. You talked about drama. Was there any startling moments or anything that happened during the filming of it that took things off track a bit?
Probably nothing I could share with you. But
yeah, right. You can share it with us. Right?
It was kind of intense and steamy, and I don't really mean it wasn't sort of sexually steamy. It was just intense. It was just steamy in every way. It was a grueling shoot. We worked very long days. and you know, it was extremely difficult having no rehearsal, and people, you know, and actors naturally, actors. If anyone in the world is riddled with insecurity, it's an actor, and so you know, it played into this method of working played into a lot of those insecurities, of course, for the actors. So it was stressful, but I would say that we bonded very quickly, like cement. And I think it reads on the screen. I think that there's a sense of you know, genuine compatibility where it's required and incompatibility where it's required.
Right. Surely you have a question back there. Please speak up, and all the way in the back.
Did you work with anyone before this movie that in the film?
Oh, the question was, did I work with anyone? I don't know if everyone can hear the question. Well, had I worked with any of the participants before in the film on this before this picture? I think I'm asking. I think I'm translating correctly. Yes, I had. Michael was an old friend, as I mentioned earlier, but I had never worked with him creatively, and it was a great pleasure to do so. But I'd worked with Vince before, who played my husband, and whose wife I played, Vince Colosimo. And I knew Matt personally, Matt Newton, but I hadn't worked with him before. I think that Vince was probably the only one that I had actually worked with. I'd worked with the sound recorders before, and I'd worked with the cinematographer before as a stills photographer. So I knew some of the people on the set, and it was very much like Old Home Week very quickly, because it was, you know, it was really like, you know, any no-budget film. So many favours were called in that, in fact, a lot of friends of Michael's were called in, and they happened to be friends of mine as well. So there was a real feeling of camaraderie very quickly. Yeah. I do enjoy the moment that always gets a laugh, which is the moment in which the three women sit together. Because there is, you know, I actually had a lot of difficulty reconciling with the moment in the script in which Claire relents to the secretary, the affair, by hugging her and showing solidarity, female solidarity. But it actually works very well in the final event, and I think it says a lot about, it says a great deal about female solidarity and the ability for women to kind of stick together when the times get tough, and I think that's what that shot is saying, actually. Yeah. I think that Michael's plan was kind of, you know, I'd love to say I think it was part of Michael's plan, but the whole thing was sort of so arbitrarily kind of thrown together, and I wouldn't want to suggest that it wasn't professionally thrown together, but we had to work very quickly, and we had to act fast, and the production team had to get the whole thing together very, very quickly. It's an extremely fair question, and it's one that I've agonised over when I thought about the film many times, because I like to rehearse, and I like to rehearse before you actually shoot the shot as well. And we didn't do that either. My argument would probably be that it's very hard to know. I think that the difficulty would have been, you see, it was a trade-off. We gained what we lost on the swings, on the merry-go-rounds with consecutive shooting, and that gave us an enormous edge, I think, as performers on the floor. And I think that's probably the best thing I could say about it, actually. Yeah.
Why did he need to start it so quickly? If 2 weeks before he had no cast.
Well, he had a window, I think, with his finance, and he also wanted to catch a couple of actors before they, you know, chuffed off elsewhere, myself included, and you know, so there were things like that. And he just decided, look, let's just do this thing. I'm ready. I know what I want, how I want to shoot it. I know what I want to do. And he had, you know, he had a group of practitioners lined up behind him, ready to go, but he didn't start casting till very, very close to the 11th hour. Yeah.
Did you go to other film festivals with the film then?
Yes, it's been done the rounds, actually. It's won an enormous number of prizes, actually. It really does seem to capture people's imaginations, this film. It's won something like 15 film festivals, I mean, best film, and it's won, you know, it's been kind of special commendation or special mention or something at at least another 15 films, so it's done very, very well on the film festival circuit. Yeah.
And I think as an actor, a lot of people look at that film and they go, like, let's see, which one of these characters would I play?
Yes, I mean, I think that's an interesting thing, and it is interesting to me how much it has been shown at the Santa Barbara Film Festival, by the way, and it was my first experience of an American audience who respond very well to this film, and I must say I didn't know what to expect on that score. I'm so gratified to see that it seems to be a universal. It is, of course, dealing with universal themes, and one of the things that most drew me to it was the fact that it's such a timely film. I mean, you know, the whole concept of dealing with bullying by means of peaceful reconciliation is a kind of relatively new concept, and the whole restorative justice is, although not new, very much a growing trend in the United States and in Australia and in other Western countries. And so I think that this is it's a really timely film in terms of its sort of macrocosmic, sort of emblematically, if you like, timely. Yeah.
Sigrid Thornton, everybody.
Thank you so much for coming to the film. I'm so glad that you really do seem to have enjoyed it, and I'm thrilled to be able to tell that to Michael, Loretta, and the whole team. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for coming out.